what I can do to be as creative as possible.
Yeah. Was that something when you were younger? Were you very creative as a kid, kind of growing up?
I was. I wrote, it's so cheesy. When I was in the 7th grade, I had a poem that was put outside of Miss Marion's classroom, and it was like, that's right, awesome. I'm the shit. That is my poem out there. Like, that was like my claim to fame for a long time. It's cheesy, but it's like, it was such a big deal because back then, you know, I'm in my 50s. Back then, creative students, they didn't stand a chance. You know, my brother wasn't gifted. He was very much, you know, that kind of a thinker, very smart. But I was just as smart, but I didn't realize it because I was a creative person.
Mm-hmm.
So where you could see my intelligence was in a much different way. And back then, no one appreciated that.
You know,
Right?
it used to be much more science, math, technology. That was considered smart, book smart, and creative. It was, you know, oh, that's nice.
Exactly.
But you're not going to do that for a living or anything.
Right.
And that wouldn't be as encouraged for a lot of people, I would imagine, you know?
Absolutely.
Were your parents, I guess, like not very encouraging of that, or?
No. And like, I really just that time growing up, like it wasn't anything I even thought was possible. You know, I really didn't think that. It wasn't until I got older and started doing things with even running the concrete business, you know, doing marketing and things like that. You know, I started realizing like these are still being creative.
Yeah.
You know, you're calling it branding or marketing or whatever, but you're promoting the business. You're being a creative. And once I started really wrapping my head around that, I was like, all right, I want to do more of this.
Now I'm curious what the marketing strategy for the concrete company was. Like, I'm thinking like concrete art and stuff like that.
No, it was actually, it's cement mix. It was bag cement mix like that you would see. I mean, the big one that everyone knows is Quikrete.
Yeah.
So it was that. And it was actually at a time that we sold to back in the day when, you know, there were a million Ace Hardwares and True Value and little mom and pop places. Like, that was the heart of the business. And, you know, slowly Lowe's and Home Depot took over. And so, you know, we kept trying to find different ways to segue, like, how do we still stay relevant when we're fighting with these really large companies? And the cool thing is we were very creative. The logo was this big, huge elephant saying, when I get wet, I'm ready to set. And with the water spraying out of the trunk. And it was like, Quikrete is like, we're concrete.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't do that. And it taught me a really big lesson because it's like, you can be small, but if you're creative enough, you can go out there and fight the big guys. And we did. It was really successful.
See, when I think of concrete, my head just goes to a dark place. And like, I would just like have like feet sticking out of a concrete block or something, you know? That's the New Yorker in me, you know?
That's New York. I never thought that way until moving here. Now it's like anybody hears about concrete. Oh, you were in that business?
Gave him concrete shoes, huh?
Exactly. Everybody says that. That's a total New York thing.
It totally is. That's always, you know, growing up, you'd hear stories like, if you're not careful, you mess with the wrong people, you could get concrete shoes and throw it in the East River, you know?
It's true. It was nice and clean. It wasn't like that.
So then, like, what kind of got you guys moving to New York then? Like, you just moved around a little and...
Well, no, Bill actually he was actually asked for a reference for someone. And as he's talking to this HR person, she's like, oh my God, like, you have a lot of experience. We actually have other positions. They're all in New York. I know you're in Orlando. Would that be something you considered? And we all talked about it. And actually our 14-year-old daughter at the time, Jordan, was like, I said, I don't know, like, raising a child in New York, like, this seems really scary. And Jordan was like, give me a break. This is going to be amazing. I'm going to grow up in New York. Why would we give up that chance? Come on, let's do this. And she's really the catalyst, I have to say, for Bill saying,
awesome.
All right, the kid's in, like, let's do it. And that was it. And we just came to New York. I drove over all those scary, now they're not, but George Washington, it started snowing. I'd never driven in snow. All the things New York was like, here you go, boom, you're here. Isn't that New York?
It totally is.
And, you know.
What does Bill do? What do you do?
What do you do, Bill?
Bill's here in the studio as well. for moral support.
I don't know if you can hear me, but
you can.
A quality director for Road and Bridge.
Oh, wow. He's a quality contractor for Road and Bridge?
Yeah, one of the key feathers in my cap was 96th Street on the Q line.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So he does the serious stuff.
Dude, that's... I'm going to have to get you on. We got to do like a tech show or something on that.
So part 2.
Yeah,
There you go.
exactly.
There you go.
But that's really cool.
Yeah.
And so then you just like came along and then kind of figured out what you wanted to do, or when you came back up here, or
Well,
came
I
up
had-
not back up here, but up here.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I had finished. I'd finished school. I had started writing for a local magazine, and I'd started doing a little bit with social media. Someone had asked me. That was when Twitter first like started, and I helped them create their Twitter. I did all these things, and then I was like, social media. And I started looking into it. At the time, there weren't a lot of social media businesses.
No.
And so I said, you know what? I can take photos for clients. So I'm doing photography. I can write content. Like, I can still do the marketing, but again, I can do the creative. And so I started Life Riley Communications.
Nice.
And started my own social media business. And when we moved to New York, everyone in New York always amazes me. They're the most humble people, in my opinion. But then you find out who they really are behind the scenes, and you're like Brian Better, who's always on the beach. He's a photographer, and he's always on the beach, and we're always hanging out and shooting and talking about stuff. And he's this. I was reading an article recently. Leah Remini was in it, and it was like photo by Brian Better, and I'm like, oh my God. So it's like he never talks about that. Like I had to ask him, like, Brian, like, what's the deal? And he does all of these big things. You never know. He's just the coolest, most chill person on the beach.
Well, that's what I love about surfing here in New York, particularly. Like, you can be out in the lineup and you don't know who is who.
Yes.
And in one hand, like, it really forces you to behave in the water sometimes. Some people,
Some people.
At least for me, I try to behave as much as possible and try to be as friendly because it's like, you don't know. They could be someone really big or they could be whatever, or something really fascinating or interesting that you're not aware of. And I think that's what's really cool about the community a lot of the times is you discover randomly too. And they're very rarely do they go and say, oh, I'm so-and-so.
Exactly.
Like, those people go out to Montauk anyway,
No, it's true. No one ever does that. And just, it's always amazing. I'm always impressed. And it's just, I had a Wall Street guy he moved to New Jersey during COVID, and I missed him. Hey, Matt. But he would come out and do private surf sessions where I would shoot just him. And
oh, wow.
Which is something really fun that I do. But we would do that together. And it's like, at first when we started doing it, I didn't know what he did. I just, he's just some dude and he surfed. And then as we're talking and he tells me what he does, like, I mean, I'm asking, I had no idea. Like, here's this big Wall Street guy. You would never know it. Just the most humble, beautiful soul, like such a nice person. And everybody, I have to say, the surfers have really helped me heal. And just with their excitement for the water, that energy, it feeds you. I mean, it really does. And I just love shooting them just because just being out there with them, it's one of the few things that people do surfing that actually makes you feel and see that childlike kind of mentality. I mean, there's not many things when we get old we can do without really hurting ourselves.
Sometimes some might say a little too childish, but
Maybe. Yeah, maybe sometimes. But it is one of those things where it's like, when I take photos and I see these faces, it's like, it's pure bliss. I mean, it truthfully is.
Now, had you ever had interaction with surfing before at all?
Not really. Our daughter Jordan, she surfed a little bit in Coco, and she's actually really good, but she's fearless. She was young, it's totally different. We did that, and Bill and I have tried lessons, and neither one of us are good. Which we've been talking about it. We've got to. I feel like now we could do better.
Is this happening? Yeah, that does. It's difficult, but you just got to get a bigger board. You know,
exactly.
I mean, Rockaway is difficult to learn. I find
it's very different. It's
you have to go to Costa
inconsistent.
Rica for like 2 weeks, and you get that rhythm, and that makes a
Yeah.
huge difference. I think you know.
That's true, and I think that you really have to love the ocean and surf to surf at Rockaway. I mean, I see people make a 1-foot wave look 10 feet. I mean, I do. Like, you see someone do it, and that's amazing. Do you know how hard that is to make that look great? And those surfers go out there and kill it and just make it look fantastic. And people show up, and they're like, oh, my God, these are the waves? Yeah, dude, these are the waves. This is it. Like, it's just so funny.
I love that because, you know, I was going to say, like, your photos are definitely not typical of surf photos, right? Like, if you look at a surf magazine and other surf photographers, it's different. But what I love is you have this outsider perspective, and there's like this awareness of space to your photos. I feel like I look at your photos, and it's like, yeah, the surfer is kind of a focal point, but my eyes sometimes are drawn to a face maybe on the edge of the wave looking down, or a bird, or just the texture of the water even. Like, there's something more. You're telling a much greater story a lot of times with your photos, I find, that I really enjoy, because it captures more of the essence of New York surfing, I think. Getting a cropped, tight photo of someone doing a maneuver, which is nice sometimes, that's a skill, but it doesn't emit a feeling or a vibe. And I think what your photos tend to do is really give that kind of ephemeral feel of New York in surfing.
I love that. I really appreciate that. That's a big part of what I want to show in my photography is, you know, photographer plus storyteller. Like, I want to make sure that I'm not just showing someone surfing, but I'm showing the story. I want to tell more. So I really appreciate that, because I'm always trying to, and not just have like a backdrop, but like you said, maybe another surfer in the distance, or, you know, somebody's lost their board and it's going crazy in the back, and, you know, just something more like depth.
I find myself mind surfing a lot of the photos.
Ooh.
Like, you know, there's someone who's taking off or at the bottom of the wave, and there's this anticipation that I find to the photos, that there's like the potentiality of what that surfer could do on the wave a lot of the times. Or there's like or it's the afterthought, like kind of them pulling out of the wave, and you're like, what just happened? And you're imagining that. There's like some sort of, it leaves something to the imagination, which I enjoy. And actually a lot of older surf photos in the magazines back in like the 70s and 80s had a lot more of that also. Like, you didn't see the whole sequence, and you had to almost like imagine what would happen. And I think there's something to a lot of your images with that.
I really love that. I mean, excuse
Just
me.
getting a little verklempt. Got spilkus in the
my
Ginecking
God.
joints. Let me give you a topic. Partridge family. Neither partridges nor family. Discuss. Sorry.
Right out.
Need that water.
But that's definitely what I'm trying to do. I mean, the storytelling, that's that writer in me. I know that. I don't think I realized it as much at first, because let's face it, the first 2.5 years I was in Rockaway, all I did was run up and down that beach in any kind of weather, and stay out for hours shooting thousands and thousands of photos every day, thousands. And because I knew that I had to learn the beach.
Yeah.
You know, I had to learn more about surfing, and surfing photography is very specific. It's shooting outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I wanted to be an outdoor photographer. I knew that was my home.
Yeah.
And so all of those elements. And plus I wanted to earn some street cred. So if they stayed out for 5 hours in the snow, I stayed out for 5 hours in the snow. That's what I do. If it's raining and they're out, I have bags for my cameras and lenses and all kinds of things, and I am out there for however long they are. So,
Damn.
Yeah.
What do you get feedback from the surfers too? Has that really helped?
That is really helpful. Yeah, especially in the beginning. I would ask, and and of course they knew that I was new, and they were really helpful. Again, Papi Del Tubo was always great. He'd really tell me, about the different breaks, and if you go to 67, there's this, and watch out for the schools during this time and that time. You don't really want to shoot there. None of that's going to look good. Like,
well,
really
I mean, the surf schools, you can make a